The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
Welcome to the Jew Function. I'm Leo. Seth, how are you?
Hello, good. Hi, Leo. Good to see
Good.
you.
Yeah, you're a little soft on your mic, so let's bring
Okay,
that
there
up a
we
little
go.
bit. Yes, excellent. Yeah, we haven't done a live thing in a while, so we're a little rusty. It's amazing how quickly you forget these things. But we're happy to be back and with a great guest today. I'm in good spirits, although I don't know if there's any real reason to be happy.
Yeah, I'm wondering why.
You know what? I'm not sure. Maybe it's because when enough people realize that you can't get any lower than this, then maybe they start looking for alternative solutions.
I don't know. I see them all running back out into the streets in Israel again to protest all over again.
That's true. I mean, people, they work on inertia. Once you get someone going, it's hard to stop and change direction. But I did hear from a few friends who are close to politics. We're not really into politics, but we have a few friends who are closer to that pot, and they told me, I heard a few of them say that people are interested in the question of Israeli identity, that this is suddenly a question, and not by the more religious side of the map, but people like the more liberal, secular, these guys are actually asking, wait a second, what is this thing all about? And I don't know if they're connecting the question of identity or the question of social cohesion with what's going on, but they're definitely asking the questions.
Well,
On
what
the
does it
other
mean? I
hand,
mean, if you're from Spain, you're Spaniard,
yeah, exactly.
I think. If
Yeah.
you're right, if you're from France, you're a Frenchman. But but these things are the Paris that you and I know. The Eiffel Tower, sitting at the cafe with a croissant. It's not always been the Paris forever.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
what is it?
True.
And what does it mean to be like? Is Israel just a normal country where normal people live, or is there some other something else? That makes it connected to the Torah or connected to who these people are. That's thousands of years old.
Clearly, there's something going on because we know as we've seen and we've shown on this podcast, the first 22 episodes. If you haven't listened to those, we highly recommend. We've shown that this group does not follow the usual trajectory. It's like almost there's like a parallel history for Jews and then for the rest of the world. And you can say what you want about them. We're not the same kind of people exactly. And a lot of people on this show have been saying that. We haven't pressed them on. We asked, and they all agree that there's something different. It's maybe sometimes uncomfortable to speak about it. It sounds like, oh, we increased the gap between us and the rest of the world. And we're saying, no, if we understand what we're about and who we are, maybe we can find our
Well, this makes the
right
whole
place,
thing.
right?
Yeah, this makes the whole thing weird. Armenians live in Armenia. Brazilians live in Brazil. So like who lives in Israel? Like who is supposed to be in Israel?
Jews from New Jersey. I don't know. No, I mean, look, the paradoxes are clear. We're not going to repeat them, but it's clear that something is different. Not many people, not many nations have been in the country, left, and then came back 2,000 years later to claim it. Not many languages have been alive, then died, then sort of got resuscitated by
And
1,000 years later.
and fascinating is like if the entire world's media was totally different. Imagine if all the media, all the TikToks were like, we found archaeological evidence from 2,000 years ago. Here's coins. These people have inhabited this place for thousands of years. These people have been kicked out of, these are the people who've actually been kicked out of everyone else, and this is their true homeland. They've been here. So even if it's true what we're saying, but the whole media landscape then twists everyone else's mind. So it doesn't even make any sense. Any way you try and put your finger on it, it's elusive.
It is elusive, and because it's so elusive, we bring experts to the show. We bring other people who spend a lot of time looking into certain aspects of this conundrum. And we've had we've had politicians, we've had journalists, we've had writers, we have activists, academics, all kinds of people who came here. We have we had a few reverends, or one reverend, I don't know, a few Muslims, a few really. We've spoken to a lot of people, I'm realizing, and we're starting to see a picture of what is a Jew, who is a Jew, and what is our role in the world, and that maybe that we even actually have one, but all of this might be just a hyperbole. We may be just dealing with theories, and that's why, like I said, we're bringing experts, and today's guest is also an expert. I've seen some of his talks, and he's I'll go briefly through his bio before he joins us. He's first of all, he's a visiting scholar with an ISGAP visiting scholar. ISGAP is the international study of why do I keep forgetting? They're the Institute for the Study of Global Antisemitism and Policy. I'm sorry, and we've had people who've done work with ISGAP. He's at the Woolf Institute, where he focuses on critical anti-Semitism studies, discrimination, and human rights. And he's a senior research fellow at the Center for Cyber Law and Policy. Maybe he knows Fred, at the University of Haifa, and is also former visiting research fellow at Vashem in Jerusalem. So it's all around. And he wrote a bunch of really interesting books. I haven't had a chance to read them all. I hope he can tell us a little bit about them. One was Phishing for Nazis, Conspiracies, Anonymous Communications, and White Supremacy Networks on the Dark Web. Right? Just that's worth an episode right there. And also, Why Do People Discriminate Jews? So again, close to our heart. I think let's bring him in and talk to him. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Lev Topor. Lev.
Hi, Lev.
There he is.
Hello, good
Thank you.
evening.
Lev, you have smiling eyes, even though you probably witnessed so much darkness on the dark web in there. You still look like you have an optimistic face.
That's I can thank the beer for that.
What I'm trying to think where to start. I don't, but maybe we'll start with a few, just some from like a personal perspective. First of all, have you always worked on the question of anti-Semitism and the Jewish problem, the Jewish question? Let's put it this way, as some call it. Like, were you always involved with that? Was that something you always wanted to be involved with?
Yeah, so obviously it was my dream job, looking at horror online and hate speech. And I did when I studied. So one of I won't name him, but at some point one of my professors declined to supervise work I wanted to do when I did my master's degree. He declined to supervise me when I wanted to study some aspect of anti-Semitism, and I so wanted to do it that ever since I've been doing this. I went to another professor, one of his competitors here in Israel, and eventually I ended up doing this for a living, looking online and offline as well, and trying to trace the hate and trying to figure out what to do with it and how to fight it.
But were you? I'm sorry, you were born in Israel, right?
No. I was actually, I was born in some parts of the Soviet Union, and in the 90s, Aliyah, my family came to Israel. We settled in central Israel, and I've been stuck here ever since.
But wait, what you came in? You look young. So you were a kid when you came?
Yeah, I was 5.
5. So did you even experience any anti-Semitism? I'm just trying to figure out, because, I left Israel, in my 20s, and I moved to New York, and there you start to, rub elbows with people. Some are more sympathetic to the Jews, some are less sympathetic to the Jews. So you start to see that there is a different attitude toward Jews when you're outside of Israel. When you're in Israel, certainly in the last, up until the 7th, and for some people, it's just never been an issue, right? It's been a non-issue. But in the US, you could feel it. So I wonder, did you feel any anti-Semitism anti-Jewish sentiment before starting to work on this? Like, what was your motivation?
So when I was a kid, I didn't feel anything. Obviously, I wasn't aware of the problem. So there was nothing there. It only came up after I grew up, after I've settled in Israel and was exposed to anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic, crimes and terror related issues, and anti-Semitism against the diaspora. So this is when I was interested in trying to do something about it.
And you start to do your research. You find that, oh my God, a lot of people don't like Jews, and not only they don't like Jews, they have different reasons for not liking Jews, and they make up different stories, and they write different books about it, make different movies about it. They rally different groups of people around it. It's an interesting obsession with the Jew. It's not exactly your typical hatred of a group. What did you find? I'm curious.
Yes. So just as you describe it, you don't have to do a PhD about anti-Semitism to figure out that people don't like Jews. But eventually, I did get a PhD in the study of anti-Semitism.
Just to be safe.
Yeah, just to be sure. Yeah. To be on the safe side. And when you do when you do academic studies and when you write a PhD, you have to find a gap in research and try and fill it out to answer a certain question. And before that, you have to study and learn all the things other people figured out before you. And you see that throughout history, Jews have been discriminated against by, as you rightly mentioned, in various times by various leaders, political leaders, by clergy, by states, like countries are fairly new. We can date back to the Peace of Westphalia, maybe 1648. But before this, we had kingdoms, and kingdoms and kings discriminated against Jews and made pogroms against Jews. And before that, clergy also discriminated and hated Jews. And before that, the Holy Roman Empire also discriminated Jews and hated Jews. And even before, when you look at the first instances of post crucifixion anti-Semitism, so Jesus was a Jew, and yet Christianity happened to, at least in the early stages of it, to hate Jews, and all 12 apostles were in fact Jewish, right? But they tried to compete with Judaism, so they invented conspiracies against the original Jews, and this is right there is the beginning. Of course, we had pre-Christian pagan anti-Semitism, but the big bang for anti-Semitism was in fact when the Holy Roman Empire became Christian, 312 AD and so on. So this is when Christianity began competing as if you think about a company trying to compete with another company. So that's the thing right there. And moving forward to 630, give or take, after the rise of Muhammad, Islam did the same. They competed well, not just with Judaism, but with Christianity as well. And ever since, people have been hating and acting violently against Jews.
What was the gap? Sorry, what was the gap that you found?
Yeah, so my PhD was about anti-Semitism in the British Labour Party from 2010 to 2018, give or take. It was all about Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party and how he made anti-Semitism kind of an institutional issue. So if you look at the numbers, so the numbers of actual anti-Semites in the Labour Party were quite low. However, you could find an anti-Semite in every rank, every stage of the hierarchy in the British Labour Party, from the local constituency up to the national committees, up to the leader of the Labour Party, and so on. You could find at least somebody who held a key position and was an anti-Semite.
Was there something? You had Pharaoh, you had Haman. Was there something unique about this period with just different costumes, different incarnation, but something? Did you find something unique about the phenomenon through your study?
Yeah, I found out that it's not so unique, but it's quite new. So we know the political aspect of anti-Semitism, which is that political leaders, populist nationalists tend, obviously in Europe, tend to blame things either on immigrants or on Jews, right? It was former
And why did they do that?
To establish control and to blame somebody else and to try and take control of a certain majority who will be against somebody else, because
Okay,
it's
hold on.
far.
I just want to slow it down a little bit because you have years and years of experience in each of these sentences. So I just want to slow it down and not gloss over like major important details. So how is it that so they blame the Jews in order to take power, right?
Yeah.
But if everybody's happy, so there's no place for an idiot to take power, right? But when you look at the politicians now, it's like like taking the US, for example, it's mind-boggling. That's it. That's all we have these are the best people in the whole country that can do. Now, maybe it is according to the place we're in right now, and you can't change it in a minute. But so these people come in to get power, and they blame the Jews. Like, for example, Hitler, when he came into power, there was a lot of problems in Germany, right after Versailles and after. The people were struggling a lot. But if everyone is living a good life, so there's nothing to blame everything on, right? There's no reason to blame everything on anyone because people are happy and they wouldn't believe the BS of the politicians, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. So fill in
Yeah.
the blanks,
So what you're saying is, it's a kind of a utopian dream, because just life teaches us
I've been accused of that.
Yeah. So life teaches us that life is hard, is difficult, and not every single moment of our lives here on Earth is blissful, and we do have some struggles, wars and economic crises and personal issues and so on. So life just won't let us this pleasure of just being good enough. And in every situation and every point of history, somebody will be mad at somebody else, and somebody would want something that his neighbor
So as long
has.
as people feel bad, there will be a reason to point to Jews. So we serve a role.
So there will be a point to there will be a point to blame somebody. I'm not saying just Jews.
But Jews
So
have always been a
happens.
convenient
yeah, because again, the holy, the big power, the Holy Roman Empire back then, they were all kind of baptized, well, not baptized, but made Christians overnight when the emperor was he took Christianity upon himself, and ever since from that point on, they all had something in common, right? So they became Christians, and Jews were not Christians. Jews were the people of the old religion, as they say, and they and ever since we became the minority that others blame
Okay, so
pretty
hold
much
on.
anything on.
I just want to, Spiegel, give me one minute here. Because even though we've talked about this for years already, I feel like in the short conversation, like something is kind of boiling to the top.
Sure.
And you accused me already of being a utopian, but that's okay. I'm willing to take to take this this name. But if everyone is happy, so probably there's no reason to blame the Jews anymore.
Yeah, unless you
Okay,
are
just wanted to
so
know that.
yeah,
Okay.
unless you are so indoctrinated in hate that even if you are happy, you still believe that the Jews don't have a place among equals, and they should be made something else. Either
I think usually though if people are happy, they don't have time to spend on all that crap. They usually have time to spend on that crap when they're not happy.
yeah. So I never, as a matter of fact, if we try and take it to practice, I have never seen completely happy people as a nation.
Yeah.
So I just don't
So
know.
there's always someone unhappy that you can
Yeah.
work with, right?
Yeah,
No,
in every country.
we agree on that. I wanted to ask, from a different perspective. So whenever we have someone who understands history here on the show, we try to figure out with them how they see history. Do they see it as a series of discrete packets, or as sort of one analog stream where everything is interconnected and interdependent? So which school are you? First of all, just so we know, we can have to frame our questions. 'Cause I know most historians are in the discrete packet bucket. They're like, whatever happens here happened because of the circumstances here and the reasons here, and don't connect it to something that happened 1,000 years ago, or So
Yeah,
which school
so
are you?
actually most historians I met, and I'm not a historian, I'm a political scientist, but most historians I met are on the other side of the carpet. They see the whole historical shift as a wave that began somewhere, and we're moving towards
Oh,
something else. Yeah,
okay.
and I'm in that school of thought because if you look, for instance, in our context at anti-Semitism at the Jews, so Jews were kind of they had this startup before Christianity. They had this startup that there was only one God, and the rest of the people didn't think so. So they began discussing at best and hating at worst Jews because they believed in only one God. This was sort of a startup. And afterwards, Christianity took over, and then Islam, and so on. And every generation, if you think about it, how do we grow up? Where do we get our ideas, how we socialize, how we act? From our parents, from our schools, from our peers, from our culture. And every European and let's start with Europeans. Every European has been, kind of feeding on this culture from birth to adulthood at every single stage. So the kind of the seed of hate can be traced to the apostles and to the crucifixions and crucifixion and even before.
So this is this is and obviously an explanation that we've heard many times, and we even though it's hard to subscribe to the idea that any sentiment is almost, as you say, hereditary, or this is passed down from generation to generation. You'd expect some gaps over a course of 2,000 years, wars, upheavals, whatnot. So that's already a fascinating fact, that you have a sentiment that survives all these things. But even as fantastical as that idea is, what's more fascinating is the fact that you have people who've never met Jews, and they have a strong hatred against them in all kinds of places around the world. Either strong positive sentiment, or strong negative sentiment, and they've never met Jews. So what's up with those people? Where do they come from?
Yeah, so I never met penguins, but I saw them online. So
okay, that's the last 50 years. I'm talking about even before that. Come on, you have people before TV.
So if we trace back mass communications, for instance, from today and backwards, so we have like social media, websites, kind of Usenets and listservs and so on. You can frame it as the internet as a whole. Before that, we had TV, and before that, we had radio, and before that, we had print, and before that, we had rumors. So even if you didn't meet a living Jew, a dead Jew, or a living Jew, doesn't matter, you would hear about them. You'd hear about them from your neighboring clergyman, or your neighboring village, and so on. You would know that a Jew is somebody else, somebody different than you are. So if the majority in the place you live in are Christians, so even if
we have Santa Claus here. Nobody ever saw him, but everyone believes in him, and that's just
exactly.
But what did you
But hold on, but Santa Claus brings you gifts. The Jews don't.
No, but there's still boogeyman or whatever. That's it's clear how Lev is describing it. A rumor can start, and you never met somebody, but you already there's enough of a rumor around him.
Yeah, there's actually a book titled "A Rumor About the Jews."
Yeah, there's all kinds. We know there's a lot of books.
So something that probably a lot of people don't have access to. First of all, your work is like data driven, from what I understand, and this, like, you look at the data, like big amounts of data, which is also what we do. So that's really unique. I think you have climate scientists who say they looked at all the data and the temperature of the earth is changing. You have climate scientists who look at the data and say it's not changing. So, I mean, we could discuss, not that we have opposite opinions, but we can discuss what we found. But it's interesting to find someone else who's looking at big sets of data. But something that we haven't done, and I think is very unique to you, and maybe that our audience also doesn't know, and I think it could bring some flavor here, maybe not good flavors, but when you hear something over and over again, it becomes your worldview. Regardless of what is, that just is how it is. What's going on, like, on the dark web? Like, what worlds are going on in there that we need to kind of be aware of?
Yeah. What's the flavor of the hate today? Give us the
This is something that we really haven't discussed much, and is very strong out there.
Yeah. So if you look at the online domain, so pretty much anti-Semites, specifically neo-Nazis, right? They adopted technology, and they adopted the internet at the very early stages in the 1980s, 1990s, and so on. They had Usenet groups about Holocaust denial and about anti-Semitism. In the 90s and early 2000s, they had websites, especially in the US, where you have a the freedom of speech. And unless you directly incite for violence, you can pretty much say whatever you want. You can say the Jews are this and that, and it would be completely fine, legal. You won't be arrested. It is not so in Europe. Europe is another case. Every European country is different. We know that we have Holocaust denial laws in Germany, laws against Holocaust denial in Germany, for instance, but not in the US. But that's another story. But as social media began, we saw that people connected with each other, and often you don't connect with somebody with different worldviews. You connect with somebody with similar worldviews. So we saw kind of the emergence of in-group indoctrination, where many people holding similar ideas just starting indoctrinating each other and radicalized each other up until the point that somebody decided to do something. And when I say to do something, it could mean that somebody decided to dox a Jew, or to harass a Jew, or to do something violent, and up until the scale of terrorism, for instance. And so what's the purpose of the dark web, of anonymity, and today's day and age of secure messaging applications like Telegram, for instance? Well, it serves a purpose, because on the online domain, on the normal online domain, on social media, for instance, if you incite for violence and if you try to coordinate something, you will hopefully and potentially be arrested. Censored, yes, and maybe arrested as well. If you're anonymous or semi-anonymous or trying to be anonymous on the dark web or on Telegram, Signal, and so on, law enforcement can't see you in most cases. In the majority of cases, they can't see you. They don't know who you are. So it serves a purpose.
What's going on there that can't go on somewhere else?
So you could plan. You could actually plan and target. You can say, okay, I want to target this and that synagogue on this date. Let's gather some funding and weapons and so on. If you try to do so on Facebook, you will be censored, and the FBI will knock on your door.
Do you see already connections between things that are planned on the dark web and then executed in the real world, or is it mostly people who are just encouraging each other? Because I think it's touching. It's part of a broader question that some people have. That is, okay, there's a dark web. I'm not in it. Who's actually in there? Is it just one big echo chamber? It's the same people talking to the same. Oh, it's this Nazi and this Nazi. Okay, it's like, or is it really a sizable portion of the population? And do you see a connection between what's discussed in the dark web and what's happening in the real world?
Yes. So most of the majority of things are indeed hardcore indoctrination. Some of it is actual calls for violence, actual planning, and I do see. I published it in the books and in articles, and whenever I give talks and presentations, I also show it. We see somebody who tries to plan something, and then an attempted execution of it. I have personally seen more than dozens of cases on Telegram, for instance, of people actually trying to do something, and some of it went straight to law enforcement. So yeah, it is a real danger that people plan something, and it kind of resembles a planning of a terror cell, where people, it is a terror cell. People are gathering around. Somebody is orchestrating this whole thing, planning his target, having their targets, and then they execute it. And you can read online, if you just type either dark web or Telegram and terrorism, you will see a lot of instances where law enforcement were able to trace them down because they had human agents and so on. But in many cases, they won't. They simply fail to see this, because you can have your monitoring when you have social media that is open, like Twitter, Facebook, and so on. But when something is closed, secure, and encrypted, so it's harder for law enforcement to deal with it.
A friend of mine yesterday sent me a video. I forget what he said the name was. Some new AI tool. It's called maybe 11 Labs or something. He uploaded like 30 seconds of himself and his voice, and then he told it what to say, and it made an avatar of him talking. So basically, you could take 30 seconds of Netanyahu, someone who didn't like Jews, and have him say, I commanded all the soldiers to go out and, arrest all the women, or what. You could really you can make anybody say anything and put this on TikTok and have 100 million people see it in 24 hours. Has nothing to do with the truth anymore. And you could the level of psychological terror now could be, there's no limit to it, because you could have you could incite the entire world to something without even big psychological operations. Somebody could just make a clip of the president of any country saying something, or someone.
Are you saying, what are you saying, Seth? Things could go even worse for the Jews?
I think that it could go a lot worse, and at an exponential rate.
Well, I guess the question is, so I think, yeah, you're right. Things can always go worse. We get that's, but the question is there, it sounds like the dark web is so, it's like ideally, on the one hand, it represents, sort of an aspiration of the world. Let us interact, connect without censorship, without limitations, regulations, just people to people. So potentially it could actually be an interesting place, right? But it seems like it's steeped in mostly a lot of negative things. So, and it's hard to track it. It's hard to monitor. It's hard to respond to. Is there a point to, can we do anything against it? What's happening there?
So we're trying. I'm not so much optimistic, but we are trying.
Right.
And I do want to point out to one thing that Stead said. So you spread rumors, you spread conspiracy using AIs, right? And we're all amazed by this technology. This is true. However, the core concept of this is nothing new. If you think about the protocols of the elders of time, right? It was a forgery, and the AI now is a forgery as well. But this was a forgery that was created, manipulated, and distributed by the Russian the Russian Tsar. And right now, you could have somebody. Well, you do have somebody, some international actors that are creating this. States are creating anti-Semitic content and disseminating it. And it's conceptually, it is the same thing. It's just spreading conspiracies.
Agreed, but
against
in
the
a
Jews.
weekend, you could get a million teenagers or a million college students wound up.
Yeah,
whereas the protocols of the Elders of Zion, it took a lot longer to disseminate it.
Yeah, this is true. The scale is massive, and you reach everybody. If you date back, so you had political leaders, local leaders, clergymen, talking to the people, to the masses, and this was the way of them to communicate. So you reached masses back then as well. But today it is even more true, because everybody has a handheld device now, right? We are all hooked to our phone, and
Hitler gave everyone a radio, and
Yeah.
did a show every day, but it was
Exactly.
once a day, and you had to have that radio. Today, every single person, wherever you are, you
Yeah.
grab the phone.
So this is scaled up by a few,
So,
by
so,
X. Yeah.
so so as we like to ask people, where are we going with this? In your mind, pointing to the problem is okay. It's half the solution. We don't even, by the way, if you're listening to our show, you know that we see all those things as symptoms, not the root cause of the problem in and of itself. It's simply an expression of that negative attitude toward the Jews. We believe it comes from a different place, and I'm curious to know what you think about it, because it sounds to me, again, the picture you're describing, this whole Black Mirror reality you're describing, doesn't bode well for Jews, for anyone caught in that net. It sounds like it's an ocean of negativity, and it just gets, it could just grow bigger and bigger every day. Where are we heading with this? What can we do about this? Do we even need to deal with this front? It seems like after the October 7th events, everything sort of like blew up. Everything came out of all the anti-Semites came out of the woodworks, all the haters, everything. It's like it's everywhere, everything everywhere all at once, right? Like the movie. So the question is there a solution to this, within the within these the rules of these of this new reality, or is the solution elsewhere completely?
So as you rightly mentioned, it all depends on how you perceive reality and what do you expect from it. Now, before I answer this, let me ask you a very quick question, both of you. What has changed since October 7th? What's different in the context of Jews, anti-Semites, and so on?
For us personally, what we've seen is simply an acceleration, an exponential acceleration of an already existing trend. In other words, we've been talking about since Seth and I since 2010. We've been creating content around it since 2014, and so for us, it wasn't a big surprise. In fact, although we didn't anticipate the October 7th, because we're not, in the, exactly, we're not plugged into the military challenge and political challenge in Israel. Although if you were, you could probably anticipate some of what happened as well. But we did anticipate that the way Jews in Israel and Jews around the world, the way they related to each other, that creates a certain attitude from the world. And that attitude has been
Meaning when Jews are fighting against each other, the world has a response to it.
right. And this we've seen, there's a lot of data that supports that. You could say, well, it's all a conjecture, maybe, but when it keeps repeating itself, generation after generation, different places, you start to say, well, maybe the data is telling us something, right? So we've seen this correlation at the very least, not to say causation. If you ask Jewish sages, they'll say causation, direct. But at the very least, correlation between the way,
like hate between brothers, the world hates us. You all get together, then it rains at the right time, and everyone gets along, and there's parnasa for everyone, and there's this.
Right. So, and it sounds,
utopian.
Like utopian. Well, it's sort of a quantum love your neighbor as yourself, as we like to call it in some places. But the point is that what we've seen since the 7th is an acceleration of an already existing trend. Meaning it's almost like, the walls are closing in, and at first it's like very slow, and you think it's bad, and then suddenly it's like, someone pushing some buttons behind it, like now it goes faster, right? That's what we've seen. We've seen a massive, fallout from the events of the 7th, and in the media and the pro-Palestinian voices and, the Arab world and all that. So all of that has been growing exponentially. And it's forcing Jews around the world to at least ask what's going on. In some cases, to consider their, the mode of action. In other cases, to consider even a deeper question, more existential questions about who are we, what is our place in the network of humanity, all the rest of it. So that's what we've seen. I don't know if that's what you hope to hear, but that's what we've seen.
I could add a
Yeah.
little.
So
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. Sorry. No. Go ahead.
You could say maybe that Jews woke up a little bit, or that Jews decided to have this Am Yisrael Chai spirit, for sure. Um, but I think you also have to add that it's it's a reaction to something bad happening. It's not something that grew from education and good culture. It came as a response to something horrible. And if only 5 people were kidnapped, God forbid, and only 100 died, God forbid, we may not have this Am Yisrael Chai spirit. It might be something else.
Yeah, even that.
Yeah. So
But
okay. So actually, when I think about what happened on October 7th, I don't see any change. Almost nothing. Because if you think about it, so those who wanted, those who killed and murdered, and those who supported them in Europe, in the US, and so on, did they suddenly became anti-Semitic? Well, no, they
no,
were
of course
anti-Semitic
not.
before October 7th, and they are still anti-Semitic now, after October 7th. The only issue is that now, because they have a tiny bit of more support, they have a kind of a legitimacy to express their anti-Semitism. But when people say that, claim that there is a rise in anti-Semitism since October 7th, I'm saying no, there is no rise, because people didn't suddenly pop up of
Right.
new
No,
mothers and were born, and there's no much more people using iPhones. No, people are the same. It's the same number. Anti-Semitism is more visible, yeah, but people are kind of the numbers of anti-Semites are the same.
we're with you, by the way. We think most of the world, if you ask them, and most people are live their lives in a sort of a neutral way, only when things happen, right? But if you really probe deep enough, you can have a conversation with people. You'll find this anti-Semitic streak in many people, many more that are reported. It exists in them. That's what we claim, that it's an irrational thing, that it's not tied to a specific action of Jews. Oh, Jews did A, so now we're responding B. No, it exists in people because it's an attitude toward a certain part of the human system. In the human network, there's a certain, it's a relational thing. So when you change something,
it's very rational, by the way, very rational. Because if you are a group and you have some problems, what is more rational, for you to blame yourself or to blame somebody else?
Oh no,
Well,
as a defense mechanism, you're right. I think it's irrational in the sense that when you compare the contribution of Jews to the world, you would say, well, why would you hate them so much? Yes, they're not perfect, but they're definitely not the worst, right? So that's when we say irrational, it's in that sense. And it pops up in people who, as we said, never met Jews and just simply walk around with this notion, even though it's a tiny group, you don't even see them. There's a lot of things to support that. But what we say is if people are feeling creatures and they feel something towards another group, then that's a different story. It's not rational in that it's tied to something, rather it's an emotional reaction. And what we're saying is this emotional reaction is tied to the well-being of the network as a whole. We say that Jews by nature play a certain role in the system. Someone needed to play that role. We call that group Jews. If it wasn't you or me and him and someone else, it would have been someone else. Someone needs to fulfill that role of, right, like in every network. Someone needs to be the hub. Someone needs to be those entities through which impulses flowing to the system, and information and resources and right and energy and money and all these things move throughout the network and just play that role naturally for different reasons. We trace it further back, but they do that. And when the needs of the system, the egoistic needs of the system, are met by the Jews, everybody is okay. Now the world has sort of shifted gears, and now the egoistic needs of people are not what supports the existence of the system. The system used to reward egoism, right? So the bigger the egoist, the higher they rise. Now it's not so much the case. If you look around, things are breaking down. The bigger you still see them, yes, in as heads of state in many places, but it's not the way the system is now asking people to consider their well-being, not through egoistic actions, more collaborative, if you will. And what we're saying is that Jews have to also give that example, relay those impulses through the system to be liked.
Lev, did you ever see any place in history where it went away, or where there's hope for it to go away?
No, not so much. Not so much. Jews were always discriminated against, and even in times where you had like the payments, the jizya that Jews used to pay for Islamic leaders in Islamic rule in the land of Israel and around between Mesopotamia back then and land of Israel today. So even then, Jews were always they couldn't ride on horses, they couldn't have certain jobs, they couldn't do this and that, couldn't be out at certain times of the day. They had to wear yellow markings, yellow stars of David, even before Hitler.
Right.
So yeah, from pre-Christian paganism and to the emergence of Christianity as the religion of the globe, of the Western globe, it should be said. So Jews didn't enjoy themselves much. Of course, they had some times of more quiet, if you'd like. And in the Age of Enlightenment, by the way, around from the 18th to the 19th century, give or take, society, European society, thought that we should abolish anti-Semitism and abolish racism because we were enlightened and we wanted to emancipate everybody. Well, it wasn't the case, because these same thoughts and reactions led to an even greater extent in racism and in anti-Semitism.
So where does the work? Where does your work? What's the best possible outcome of where all your work goes? Because based on what you just said in the last 5 minutes, even if it quieted down, after that it would just become worse than it was before. So what is the purpose? What do you hope will happen from your work?
So at the end of the day, I think the best possible outcome, which is hard to get, obviously, is that Jews would be considered legally, even if not socially at the beginning, but legally as equals. So the first book I wrote with Professor Jonathan Fox, titled "Why Do People Discriminate Against Jews?" we kind of decoupled this anti-Semitism and discrimination, and we saw that you could be an anti-Semite and not discriminate because your country, company, business, whatever, would not allow it, and you could be discriminating Jews even though that you are yourself not hating Jews, not an anti-Semite. So from that point on, I figured out that whenever Jews would be equals, legally speaking, equals among other people to a substantial period of time for a few generations, then we will see a shift because it is hate is generational. So then only then we will see a shift in attitudes towards Jews, because the children of the children of the children of the next generations would not grow up knowing that Jews could be harassed, discriminated,
But
violently. Yeah.
hold on. It wasn't America that golden Medina for Jews in the last 100 years or so, more or less. It started to become for a while. There was a period after the Holocaust, especially, it was unpopular to discriminate against Jews, and the attitudes changed, and people opened up, and Jews gained, they got into positions of power.
What you're saying, Spiegler, is
society.
it's not sticky.
No, I understand, but I'm saying,
No, I'm saying what you're saying is it's not sticky. You can make that, but it doesn't stick.
yeah, I'm trying to find out. Like, are you saying, Lev, that if it only was protected by law somehow, that it would say you should not, like, having the social convention that you should not hate other people, Jews or otherwise, is not enough. You say no, it should become a law. You should not hate the Jew. Is this what you're saying?
It's not just a law, but a normative feeling and action among society. So not strictly legal, a legal issue, but more of a behavioral legal issue, that people would not do anything
like gay people now,
like
in
gays,
the United
exactly.
States. Like gays today in the United States, everybody has a gay cousin, everybody has a gay coworker, everybody accepts.
Eventually people get used to the idea of gay people, right? So eventually people should get used to the idea of
so
Jews.
What has to happen? Hold on. So what has to happen because Jews are aliens? I mean, quote unquote.
Yeah.
What has to happen for people to be comfortable with aliens living amongst them? So, I mean, based on the first thing you said, how you opened, basically everyone needs to be happy, and then if everyone's happy, then they won't have this emotional need to hate on them.
So as I said, unless we as a society reach a certain utopia, we would always have somebody to blame.
So you're a utopian.
Wait. So no, hold on. I want to take him on that.
Hold on. This is it. We finished. We win. We have to become a utopia.
No, but here's the question. The question is, what if Jews have to play a certain part in bringing society to forget utopia, a more advanced state, an advanced state of consciousness, an advanced
utopia. It's a word people understand.
I'm trying to keep it real. Let's just say, again, as we sometimes say, we bring up this idea. Jordan Peterson visited Israel, and he said, well, look, the world is looking at you. If you can make it work here, this place that is like this hodgepodge, and all the people from all of the different kinds of ethnicities and religions, and they all live together. If you can make it work here, the world will be inspired and will love you and will try to emulate you elsewhere, right? He said it, not me. But we're saying it also. We're saying that we're absolutely have a vital role to play in bringing society to this place of this utopian state, or a higher level of existence. And if we're not doing it, then it's a vicious cycle. It'll never end. Society will never reach that state, and it will continue to hate on Jews, either because they don't know, or because intuitively, or because they don't bring them to this state. One of the two. Like, we're screwed either way. So what we're asking is, if what's your feeling about it? Like, do you feel like Jews have a certain role to play, that they have something different to do here, or Jews are just like every other group that ever lived in this world?
So it depends on what lens you use for looking at Jews. You could look at the more religious lens and say, okay, maybe Jews do have a place to make the world a better place. Yes, this is true. I hope so. I really hope so. But you also have to look at it from the other side, which is basically the Jews are just people like everybody else. And every society has their own problems, their own issues. When actually Herzl, who predicted the state of Israel, who invented the state of Israel, wrote about it, and he wrote that once Israel would become would be established, we would have the same problems, same social problems, same criminal problems, same sovereignty problems as any other state, because we are just people at the end of the day. And, you know, I'm asking, why do I, as a Jew, need to have a function? I'm just normal like everybody
Hold
else.
on. Well, this is. I think this may be. I don't want to stop where your trajectory, but it's an important point to bifurcate. That all our data points to that Jews aren't normal people like everyone else, because if they were, so then, okay, let's treat it like everything else. But if Jews are not normal people just like everyone else, I mean, we have a body like everyone else. We go to the bathroom like everyone else. We reproduce like everyone else. We go to work like everyone else. But there's also some other thing that's not like everyone else.
There are different attitudes, different, like, and we've seen it but not just us. Many guests here also pointed this out. There's things that we as Jews take for granted that are not. They're not shared by others. Others look at them sometimes with envy, sometimes with other feelings. But there are a lot of.
Does this resonate with you at all, or you say, no, Seth, that's crazy what you're saying, and I don't even relate to what you're saying?
Of course, I do think so, but I also.
He thinks that you're crazy.
No, I do think that Jews have been brought up with a certain religious and cultural aspect notion of uniqueness, and Jews are unique, and the non-Jewish world also looks at Jews as somebody who may have some uniqueness for the better or for the worse. And it's interesting to when you look at the core ideology of Nazism, for instance, there's a reason why Nazis wanted to enslave everybody else, but to annihilate the Jews. So they perceived the Jews as the only people who could rival them. So they had to try and eliminate them. And many other groups, societies, radical fractions of this or that religion think the same. So we have to try and be as unique as possible, and to give give the world a social and cultural entity to look at. Yes, this is correct, but we also have to to acknowledge that we are not that unique, that we are just people as everybody else, and up until the point that others would see us as equal, just as them, we will always stay unique for us or for them.
The thing that we have that we take issue with, I guess, is as Seth said, clearly, we share a lot of traits with other people. We are people. The changes are they're not these kind of coarse changes, coarse differences that people tried to pin on the Jews in the past. The big nose and the different things, and and the scheming and all. There may be stereotypes that obviously represent certain traits that people highlighted again in use of the narrative that was serving them at the time. What we're saying is that there is something. We want to focus on the unique part, the part that really does separate Jews from the rest of the world. This is where we look at again, if not at network science and painting Jews as hubs versus all the rest of the nodes, we look at Jewish sages who've been talking about that uniqueness for the last 3,000 years, and they all have been pointing a finger at that quality, that ability of Jews to unite, to form a cohesive network out of radically different individuals. That's something that doesn't exist exactly.
This is something that we should really open up the conversation with. Maybe like Lev would join us on a panel, what is the thing that is uniquely Jewish? Like what is it that that does differentiate a Jew from other people? Because we all work with everyone, with normal, everyday, regular people. We all interact with them, have friends with them, do business with them. Our kids go to school with them. I mean, you're in Israel, so maybe not, but here in the States, 100%. But as far as a nation that, like, for example, world peace, nation will not lift sword against nation. My house will be a house of prayer for all nations. This comes from the Jews. This is maybe that's what that unique thing is. I think that there's something attached to us, whether we like it or not, and it's goes hand in hand. It's like you said, you decoupled, and I agree with you that it would take several generations of correct culture and correct education to raise people to understand that each one has their unique thing. But something that kind of is coupled is this uniqueness, like the state of humanity, like our emotional state, our political state, our state of war, and this anticipation of war and endless war. Basically, people being unhappy and feeling empty and scared. And then this group who's supposed to be like promising world peace, unity, goodness, but it's not coming. And this anti-Semitism, like I feel like it's like stuck together there.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry. So you're saying basically that we should be equal to others, but others just don't see us as equal.
No, I'm saying that at some point in the future, after all these generations, everyone will be completely equal, but like in a body serving different roles, right? Like the strong guys who build the houses aren't the guys who are going to be teaching the children, aren't the ones who are going to be out in the farm, aren't the ones who are going to be building the computers, right? Like each one's going to have a different role. The role of the Jew is a role that we need to become clear about what this role is.
Maybe a question to you, and I want to bring it back again to your personal experience, because at the end, we're talking to you, not. How would you define, sorry, surprise call. The question is, how would you define a Jew? To an alien, we like to ask this question a lot, like to someone else who doesn't have access to, the history and everything. Who, you can't say, oh, it's that group that suffers a lot, or people pick on a lot, whatever. Like the alien is like, I don't get it. What is this group of people? The alien sees a group, as a, in time, looking now at humanity, like, why is such a small group yield so much influence and draw so much attention, and everybody has such strong emotions toward it? What is this? What is this group? And he can't put his finger on what is it. Maybe you can help. Maybe you can give some defining traits of a Jew. What is that?
So it's fairly simple. A Jew is somebody who believes and acknowledges in Judaism, and who is also maybe born to a Jewish mother. That's it.
Wait, what is Judaism? Judaism is a big thing.
The Jewish religion, the concept that there is one God. He created Earth, humanity, and we should all try and get along, and only then he will be happy and we will be happy.
So let's
Jews
just
believe in this.
So we take a big ball of clay, we flatten it out, we cut it up. That corner is going to be Buddhists, that corner we're going to teach them Christianity, that corner Jews, that corner Islam, and that's it. It's all the same material. We just indoctrinate each one different, and this corner over here, this little group, that we call Jews. It's just the same clay that everyone else is made out of. Just this is what they believe versus that's what others believe. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Clear.
And
So we are of the belief, I don't know how to say it, that in that clay, that there's another like drop of water or something that landed on part of that clay, and through the all of the exiles that the Jewish people went through, and all of the intermarriage that the Jewish people went through, and all of the what's it called when Jews mix with other people? The
assimilation.
assimilation that took place through all the thousands of years. So that drop, that's added drop, got mixed in, plus the lost tribes and everything got mixed in with the rest of the world. So now it's not just
Definitely.
so now it's not just one little group. There could be some Jew in ISIS, you know. There could be some Jew in everywhere, in every single place now. But that there is some additional quality into the clay that wasn't just the primordial clay that all of the creatures were built out of. I'm not trying to be biblical. I'm just saying we're all made out of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen, the same crap. We're all made out of every animal, every plant, and us. But there's also, we could call it, I don't want to like say godly or something, but there was something else added into, I mean, this is our premise.
Yes, because
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
I completely agree. And you know, when you divided at your first instance the clay, so you know the Christians were second to the Jews, so they have a certain feeling, right? They were second. They were like Judaism 2.0, and Islam were third. So
Right.
it's not just equal bits and pieces of other people in religion. It's they have certain amounts of energy held in them, and this energy dates back to Judaism.
Okay, good. So the question is, question remains. You said in the before the definition, you know, the believe in one God and try to bring the world together. That's a beautiful premise. You know, I imagine that if people really felt such a premise from all Jews, it would be much more difficult to hate on us. Do we actually live up to this premise? I'll ask you straightforward.
We try to.
We try.
I really see that we try to, not only in Israel, in the diaspora as well. But unfortunately, other people who try and either blame or compete with Jews and Judaism don't see it that way, and this is where we get things wrong.
And you think between us Jews, we're good. We're in love and unity, and
No, of course
that's
not.
not what I'm
But
seeing.
no, of course not. But I think that we sometimes, you know, I mean, when I walk down the street in Israel, doesn't matter where, I don't feel hate. Not in more religious part, not in more in less religious part. I don't want to use the word secular because most of Israeli citizens are in fact not secular,
Right.
but I just don't feel as much hate as the foreign media and some of the domestic media portrays. I don't feel it on my everyday life, and I think we need to go outside more, have more friends, try to be outside of, you know, Facebook and Twitter, and see that not everybody disagrees with us.
Stay and maybe stay out of the dark web as well a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Unless you want to buy drugs, so that's
Keep that in mind.
yeah.
So, all right, Liv. So, first of all, I mean, I see someone that's you know, you're we were not wrong. You are an optimist. You have a good outlook in you, even though you're delving into some of the worst parts of the internet and you're seeing some of the worst things. You're actually, you have a sort of, I feel like this belief in the simple goodness of most people, and this is beautiful. What would you, if you could, and again, by nature, I'm an optimist, but I just drove through Tel Aviv on the way here. That's why I was late. And I still saw people with like a lot of anger and a lot of, and it's not just against one person at the top, but there's like, people are not happy with a lot of things. And they have a lot of, a lot of grievances with other groups, to the point that they were ready to, cancel them. Either you move out or I move out. Like really strong emotions. And I still see it. I see it now. I don't feel this strong sense of unity, even though I feel it from certain parts in the people, as you said, and the same in the U.S. by the way, with the second big assembly of Jews in the world. There's some who are naturally inclined towards seeing the good in others, and there are those who are holding strong to their beliefs and opinions and sides of the argument. Do you have an advice for people how to be more on that side? How to eventually find the way that will bring them together. Like how would you, I don't know, help them
Yeah.
get
So
together? Because data and numbers and all that, this is good, but people don't feel with data. They feel with attitudes. They feel with what's
yeah.
happening between
So
people.
it's actually maybe it is related, and maybe it is not related to hate and anti-Semitism, but it is definitely related to what you described in the horrible traffic of Tel Aviv. And my advice would be to actually walk and cycle more instead of using the car. And I will say, and I will explain. We as human beings are social creatures, and when you are isolated up to the point where you sit in a cubicle, true, you do have your AC and your radio or podcast, but you sit in the cubicle all day, right? You get angry, and when you sit in the cubicle with that is called the handheld device, you also get frustrated and you feel alone. And I think the best way to be less angry at your neighbor, but also less angry at your local Jew, is to just go outside and see that people are just people, and you're just wasting your time being angry.
This is good. And what about all these people who are not Jews, who hate Jews? I just saw some Jewish family was attacked in a graduation ceremony in Brooklyn. Uh, Things are happening around the world in other places. Well, what's your advice there? How can we change that?
So actually, a very similar advice: just go out and socialize with other people, including the Jews, and you would see that Jews are exactly the same as you are, as non-Jews. They study and they work, and they like to have their fair share of pints here and there. Exactly the same. So that's why I said that we should all strive to be perceived not as unique, but as plain, as equal, as just like our neighbors.
That's also an
Um,
approach.
no,
Yeah,
I'm getting something really good here. If you have a really difficult time with a coworker, with a family member who's very confrontational or always like, you're always banging heads. But if you do like a big barbecue with the whole family or with a bunch of coworkers, that person will probably behave. If they're always just getting on your case when it's one on one, but if you go into a group like that, they're not going to want to be seen by everyone else as this aggressive, angry person. So if we can create more opportunities to be amongst people, so fine, if we think we're different, we can just do that in our heart. We can pray for everybody more than they're praying for us. That'll be what we're special about. But as far as being on the outside, we make a hamburger for them, we make a hamburger for them, we pass the beer around. We can just be in the world like everyone. And if there's something special inside of us, so let us just double our good wishes for everybody, our prayers for everybody. But on the outside, we're good citizens. We get along with everybody. I think it's a good start.
Yeah, we hope.
Yeah.
I have before we go, one of our viewers actually asked if you're familiar with Yasha Levine's work.
Does he have a title or something?
He's a journalist from Moscow, I think, originally, but he was, let me see, Yasha Levine. He's a Russian-American investigative journalist, author, reporter. Was born in
I know who he is, but I just what kind of work
I'm
is
not
he?
sure. I'm not sure. I see some of the books that he wrote about Surveillance Valley as well. I know. I was just trying to it's okay if you don't know him personally. That's fine too. I did put a quote in the chat. We like to end with a nice quote. I put a quote by the famous quote from Herzl. We never read it here, actually. If you could read it for us out loud, that would be phenomenal, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So, if you will, it is not a dream, but if you do not, then everything I told you is a fairy tale and will continue to be. This dream is not much different from the truth, as many people think. All men's deeds were once dreams.
Beautiful. So, Lev, thank you very much for taking the time, for being patient.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's refreshing. We bring people here, and a lot of them, they're very, they're like, see the dark side in things, and I like how you have this, human-centered approach, and put all the data aside and just go cycle around and talk to people. I like that. We like that a lot. We actually
and
do
drink
that.
And drink beer.
Yeah, and dream big. Yes, and get your drugs.
Oh, dream big. I thought he said drink beer.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
but also dream big.
Yeah, drink beer, dream big, and get your drugs on the dark web. That's the message for today. Lev Topor, thank you so much for being with us. This is the True Function. We'll also publish this everywhere. If you're watching this now, you'll be able to catch it on X and on Facebook and on Instagram. Like, follow, share, comment, spread this. This is one way of getting more people to contemplate these ideas and consider these ideas in their lives. We are the True Function, and thank you everyone for being with us.
Thanks, guys.
Lev, have a great
Thank you.
night. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.